from the start of the Black Panther Party still crying out against injustice and for justice, against systematic racism in this country against African American and Black people. 54 years later, the same cry, the same kind of protests, the same brutality is being perpetrated against Black, brown people. And so that's why I'm saying we cannot grow weary in well-doing. We must continue this protest. We are seeing some movement in the legislature, although our president, and vice president, they can't even say Black lives. They can't even say Black Lives Matter. Here is a man who is clearly racist, who clearly has biases and prejudice, even though he's publicly said he's the least racist person. But when you come down an elevator and the first thing out of your mouth is talking about how Mexicans are rapists and murderers, I mean, just a general statement that Mexicans are rapists and murderers. You support the Ku Klux Klan. You don't denounce, you don't deny them. This week, there was a symbol from the Trump campaign that was on Facebook that Facebook took down that was clearly a Nazi symbol. He's made statements that when they were protesting, there were good people on both sides. Good, as if to say Nazis and white supremacists are good people. Really? 2 white pastors had to come back and apologize because of their statements. Ron Parsley, who in some ways was celebratory of the heritage of slavery, and made statements that, we should not, because they were pulling down these statues, and he made a statement that he had to walk back because the African-American community and all the Black people that he pastored, many of them disapproved of what he was saying because it had such overtones of racism. And Ron Parsley has a large church that has a lot of African-American people. To me, period, you should denounce racism. Don't try to talk about slavery in any context unless you're talking about the heinousness, the cruelty, and the unjustness of what slavery did to African-American people. Don't even open your mouth unless you're denouncing racism. Here, this white pastor, who is a prominent pastor all over the world, speaks in terminology that actually lifts slavery in a capacity as if it should be a celebratory thing in this country. And then this Passion Pastor Church, what's his name? Gigolo. What is his name? Something. I can't pronounce the man name. I don't need to pronounce it. Anyway, he comes out and says slavery was a blessing. Why would you put blessing in the same sentence of slavery? And then he had to come public and walk that back. And then here is another white pastor, privileged white man, who has no context, obviously does not have enough staff around him, and you need to look up his staff, does not have enough staff around him to help him to make a connection with the plight and with the struggles of the African-American community. In the same sentence, he uses that slavery was a blessing. And he had to come back and apologize for his comments. It is clear that we don't need to grow weary in well-doing, because even those pastors who think they have this deep connection with Black folk because they pastor Black folks are still clearly clueless to this horrible history of America for what they've done to African-American people. And no white pastor should have anything to say unless they're opening their mouths to denounce any form of racism or cruelty by police or anybody else. Matter of fact, let me go back. Ron Parsley Rod Parsley is a big supporter of Trump. Trump is a racist. If you support a racist, what does that say about you? I'll let that sink in. Yes, I said it. And I ain't going to walk it back because it doesn't need to be walked back. You support Trump and all of his foolishness, this ignorant man who's in the White House, even his family said, members of his family have said, his father raised the devil, and now the devil is running the country. And these white evangelicals are supporting me. And then these black people who know the history or are trying to ignore the history and know what's happening, even in our country with systematic racism, is still supporting him. This is the most ignorantest stuff I've ever seen in my life. Why would you support people who have their neck on who have their knee on your neck? Just because you can live in a nice neighborhood and got a little money, you forgot where we have come from, and you don't support the need to denounce systematic racism and injustice against black people. People, young folk and white people, and those of you who are out there, I'm just simply saying, don't grow weary in this well-doing, in this approach, in this practice of protesting and bringing attention to what has happened to us, what is still happening to us in this country. People are all over the world recognize the systematic racism of this country, and yet those citizens who live in the country are denying the inevitable, that this is still such a racist society that we live in. There is a story, it's in Acts, the 10th chapter, where one of the disciples of Jesus, Peter, who was assigned to go to a Gentile community and preach to them. But because the teaching of the Jewish people was to be prejudiced against Gentiles, they were taught to be prejudiced. They were taught to be bigoted against a certain race of people, because racism is taught. You're not born a racist. You're not born hating people. You are taught to hate. And so they were taught to dislike a sector of society, the Gentiles, and he refused to go to this community to bring the gospel to them. And so he had a dream, and the way the story goes, this sheet comes down, and on this sheet was all kind of animals, and God spoke to him and said, don't call what God creates unclean. But the point is, they were taught to be bigoted. They were taught to be to hate a certain group of people. And what I'm saying is, this hatred, this dislike of black people is something that is taught in the homes, because children are not born hating people. They're not born disliking or born as racist. They're taught this. And this kind of teaching has been perpetrated in homes for hundreds of years. You see kids, white kids, being brought up to hate black people. This can be untaught if we continue to prove and to march and to really help people understand how unjust this practice is. Somebody said, there are people out there, oh, we'll never get rid of it. Yes, you can. Because if you don't believe you can get rid of it, you won't get rid of it. If you don't accept that this is not something that needs to be dealt with, you won't practice how to undo it. But what I'm saying is, it can be undone. And we can begin a society where we teach people to truly love one another and to practice the teachings of Jesus, who says that as believers, as Christians, just as people in general, we should practice loving our neighbor and loving one another. There is nothing loving about bigotry, racism, and hatred towards any sector of people. And so I'm just telling us, don't grow weary. Do like they said the Klans people did. They stopped wearing hoods and joined police departments. They stopped wearing hoods and became politicians. They stopped wearing hoods and positioned themselves in society where they could do the most harm with systematic racism against people. That's right. Some of you are sitting there thinking, oh, they're not. No, yes, they are. They're in political positions, they're in police departments, they're in people of leadership, and they are there for one reason, and that is simply to oppress black people. And they are making it happen on a systematic level across the country. And so what I'm saying is we as black people must do like they did. Continue to protest, don't grow weary in well doing, and begin to position ourselves in places of leadership where we can significantly make changes in policy and in the practice of, what people are doing against African American people and black people in this country. We have done it. We are politicians. But let me tell you something, black politicians, we're not doing enough. And what we're seeing now is because of the protests and the pressure that is being put on black politicians and white politicians now. But you do see the white counterparts are still are still objecting to legislature and to laws that really can make changes. If you see the Senate are just trying to pass these weak legislative laws that have no bite to them because they really don't want to say anything or upset the status quo. And so our African American people who like the mayor of DC, that woman ain't playing. She printed on the street, Pennsylvania Avenue, leading right up to the White House in the face of the president, Black Lives Matter. And she's unapologetic for her position and her stance in doing what she's doing. And so we need a whole bunch of people like that who are unapologetic in their position and their stance against injustice and the systematic racism. It's not just about policing, it's about bringing down systematic racism in this country because they have systematically and continue to system. I don't even understand why you hate us so. Why would you systematically put things in place to keep us oppressed and to keep us down? And so we need more people like Patrice and Alicia and those Black Lives Matter leaders, Sean and the rest of those people, even those people who are now resurrecting the Black Panther Party. I'm saying, don't grow weary in well doing. I told you, God help me. If I had the strength and the power, I'd be on the street. I drove down there yesterday. The reason that I got this Black Lives Matter T-shirt on is because I went right back down there, and I was on my little scooter, my motorcycle. I was trying to go around the police to get to the site of where they were protesting. They blocked us, and I couldn't get down there. So the best I could do was get me a T-shirt and put on my Black Lives T-shirt. I want to wear my Black Lives T-shirt right up in front of white folk, and where I can make them uncomfortable. Because I mean, people, we got to do what we can. I'm serious. We have to do what we can to keep this moving until we see significant change. I mean, change that's going to make a difference, change that's going to be sustainable, change that's going to make a difference in the Black and African American communities around this country, change that's going to be so significant until other countries will wake up and see that America has become a different America. And then the last thing I want to say in this sermon, y'all might say, Bishop, how is this gospel? This gospel, because the gospel is about justice. And if you don't have justice in your preaching, you are not following Jesus, because Jesus was all about justice. The Old Testament was about justice. And unless you can go into your pulpits and stand behind those lecterns and really preach justice in your messaging about how people should be fairly treated, you are not really following the teachings and the tenets of Jesus Christ. So don't try to challenge me and think that, oh, he ain't preaching. Baby, I'm preaching, because I'm talking about treating people right and treating people the way they're supposed to be treated and loving your neighbor as you love yourself. Last thing I want to say, and I know this is political, get that nigga out the White House. I mean, get him out. He must be removed. I'm talking about Donald Trump. Yeah, I called him a nigga. That's a nigga. Get that man out the White House. Vote. Go to vote and get him out the White House. The devil is leading this country, and you got white evangelicals supporting the devil. That man is evil. He's evil. Did you hear what I said? He's evil. And those that follow him are just as evil. The attorney general, he's evil. A lot of those people, that's evil, y'all. When you can support a man who kills another man unjustly and you can't even open your mouth and say it was wrong, that's evil. He should have been the first person saying the way George Floyd was murdered was wrong, but he won't say it. That's evil. When you support people who hate other people, that's evil. And your only cause is self-serving, so you can be back in it. When you put out lies that President Obama was not born in this country, that was evil. And all of this is evil. It's demonic. If you ever want to see what demonic stuff is, this is demonic. All right. Y'all, I guess y'all say, Bishop been real passionate. Well, you know, in my condition, I ain't got nothing to lose but to tell the truth. That's all I want to do, is tell the truth and to motivate us to do the right thing and to stand in this climate and in this time that God has ordained. Rod Parsley, God has ordained this. This has been ordained by the hand of God, that we do what we're doing now, even in the midst of this pandemic and what we're going through with coronavirus. I said I was going to be through, but let me say something about corona. It ain't over. Wear your mask, wash your hands, and social distance. It's not over. And as you see, it's on the, I don't understand why people are in denial of science. It's not over. People are still getting the virus. People are still dying from this virus. And this evil man in the White House is ignoring the science because he wants to be reelected. And people are dying at his hand. And there are people supporting him. You know, I'm going to say this. He's a murderer. If you're not saying nothing, you know this is a virus that's killing people, and you're not doing what you can, and you're being supported by other people who are pushing the economics of this and pushing their own self-serving agendas, you're a murderer, because people are dying. And all you have to do is do the right thing with enforcing certain rules and certain laws to help save lives, and you won't do it. You won't save lives? Come on. You won't save lives? And they're talking about how many hundreds of thousands of people are going to die by October. There are thousands of people that they're saying are going to be dead by the 4th of July. And nothing is being said from the leadership. That's murder to me. And it's unfair and it's cruel. And it's coming from the top. All right. Bishop done had his say. Y'all still love me? I love you. Don't grow weary in well-doing, for you shall reap if you faint not. God bless you. Now may God's grace and the presence of his Spirit commune with us, stay with us, until we're blessed to meet and see each other again. And all the people of God say amen. Amen.
One day, when the glory comes, it'll be ours. It'll be ours. Oh, one day, when the war is won, we will be sure. We will be sure. Oh, glory, glory, glory. Oh, glory, glory. Hands to the heavens, no man, no weapon formed against, yes, glorious destined. Every day, women and men become legends. Skins to go against our skins become blessings. The movement is a rhythm to us. Freedom is like religion to us. Justice is juxtaposition in us. Justice for all just ain't specific enough. One son died, his spirit is revisiting us. Two are living in us. Resistance is us. That's why it wasn't shot on the bus. That's why we walk through Ferguson with our hands up. When it goes down, we woman and man up. They say stay down and we stand up. Shots we on the ground, the camera panned up. King pointed to a mountaintop and we ran up. When the glory comes, it'll be ours. It'll be ours. Oh, glory, glory, glory. Oh, glory, glory. Now the war's not over, victory isn't won, and we'll fight on to the finish. And then when it's all done, we'll cry glory, oh glory, oh glory, glory. Summer is now for every man, woman, and child. Even Jesus got his crown. In front of a crowd, they march with the torch. We gon' run with it now. Never look back, we to go hunting some mouse. From dark roads, he rose to become a hero. Facing the leader, justice, his power of the people. Enemy is lead to a king became regal. Started facing Jim Crow under a bald eagle. No one can win the war individually. It takes the wisdom of the elders and young people's energy. Welcome to the story we call victory. The coming of the Lord, my eyes have seen the glory. One day, when the glory comes, it'll be ours. It'll be